Hello, everybody. My name is Amelia, and I'm one of the founders of Happy Nation NFT, a project that is bringing well-being to the NFT space. And with this collection, we'll also be able to support children's well-being. And today I have the pleasure to introduce to you Chief Executive, Child Rights in You, Pooja Marwaha. We're going to learn all about her and her work. And thank you so much for being here, Pooja. How are you today?
I'm great, Amelia. Thank you for having us and for thinking of the children of India in your work.
Absolutely.
We are always grateful.
Absolutely. So where are you located in India, actually?
I'm in the south of India in a city called Bangalore.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. I haven't been myself yet, so I can't comment, but
You must come.
I would love to, absolutely. So please, Pooja, tell me about how did you get into this line of work? Tell me a little bit more about yourself before we go into the organization.
Sure. I grew up all over. I grew up in other places in India, in a sense, other places from where I was born, and a fairly middle class kid, which in India means that, you study hard, you put down your head and you get yourself a good, well-paying job, because, your parents can only support you up to a stage. And that was me. Um, During the course of these studies, I think something happened that actually brought me eventually to cry, which was I was doing my master's in human resource management at an institute run by a very enlightened educationist, now that I think about it, who ensured that even in our very technical, course, they had put in subjects and voluntary work. So I got exposed during the course of those 2 years to some of the extreme poverty that coexists in our country, along with a fairly, like I would look back at my life and say it was fairly privileged, maybe not by Western standards, but by Indian standards, and comfortable middle class, vis-a-vis the extreme and dehumanizing poverty that I got exposed to during the course of volunteering and doing, studying some of the, social justice and social equity work that was put into our course. And then, of course, I went off and did the usual, I joined the corporate sector and had a well-paying job. And in the course of that, I moved to one of India's largest cities, Bombay. And that was interesting because there again, I think that's what sort of finally helped me make up my mind, because that's a city where there is a very troubling juxtaposition of extreme poverty with extreme wealth. And it's side by side. It's there every day. And you know that as a citizen, as someone who feels strongly about my country and human beings, and I think just a pure desire for everybody to have the same chances in life. I think that's what really, I think, influenced me to look at my life choices and see if I could actually use my skills, my professional, what I knew, my life, myself, to actually work for bringing about that equity.
That's wonderful.
So yeah, that is really what drove me to come here. And I must say, in the last 28 years, I have never even for 1 second regretted the choice. In fact, I have celebrated that it has enriched me so much, and it has brought me so much that I wouldn't be who I am today
That's
without
wonderful.
this wonderful job.
That's wonderful. And when you say CRY, you mean the short form of Child Rights in You, right?
Yes, yes, I'm so sorry. That's
No,
the acronym by which we call it in India, CRY, Child Rights
exactly.
in You.
Exactly. And how did you end up at CRY?
Okay, that's an
And
interesting
tell us
story.
more about the organization and the mission and the vision.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. So I think what happened was that when I decided that I wanted to work in the not-for-profit sector, I, quit, left my job and met a few, got back in touch with a few friends who I knew were in this space and so on. And as I was doing that, what I realized is that the one organization that kept coming up, as in an organization that seemed to resonate with what had driven me,
Mhm.
which was this realization of these two Indias, this very privileged, very underprivileged. And this organization actually also talked about that
Mhm.
and talked about building the bridges, the channels, the resource sharing between the two worlds. And that was just where I was coming from. And really, that's what brought me here. And I think that is what CRY is about. And
Mhm.
realize that the mission and vision of this organization
Mhm.
is not just to do some work for children. The mission and vision of CRY is to transform society into a just and equitable place where children are at the center of decision making.
Mhm.
And therefore, ensuring that children have, get back all their rights, and they are ultimately, in our vision statement, we talk about happy, healthy, and creative,
Mhm.
because we say those children can only be that
Yeah.
if they are at the center of our society.
Mhm.
And that's the mission of the organization, and it is what drives the way we operate. So
Mhm.
we are not very large by anyone's standards, but we are very clear that we want to both work with children and get, or in a missionary way almost,
Mhm.
try and enable and give chances and opportunities for adults
Yeah.
to take action, to transform how they feel about children, and then to take action.
Mhm.
So providing those modes of action also is within our remit as we see it.
Yeah. You say that the organization is not so big. Can you tell us a bit how many people you have there? How big the
Yes, so we
organization is?
are, when I say not so big, I'm comparing ourselves to obviously the larger international NGOs and so on.
Yeah.
So we work in 19 states in India,
Mhm. Mhm.
and we have 160, 70 odd people of our own
Mhm.
with 4 permanent offices.
Mhm.
And more importantly, we have local partners
Mhm.
who are either NGOs or fellows or individuals, or places where we do sites of work ourselves in about 100 places.
Mhm.
We cover around uh, almost 400,000 children
Wow.
and 250,000 families.
Amazing.
And yes, so we are largish by Indian
Yeah.
sizes,
Mhm.
but like I said, the work is it is rights based. It believes inherently that every child has a right to an education, to
Mhm.
health, to be protected,
Yeah.
and to be able to participate in the decisions that affect her life.
Mhm.
So we have over time evolved the filters for ourselves. So we would like to be where nobody else is.
Mhm.
So we look for children who are sitting at the intersectionality of being very marginalized, whether it is by economics or race or
Mhm.
visibility or whatever, or gender. In our country, it's a very big marker of marginalization, unfortunately.
Yeah.
or by geographies and communities that are not reachable, where there is conflict or there is are just hard to reach because they are in the middle of a forest or live on a sea, a coastline. So all of this is something that we look at in our analysis. So we try to be there for those most marginalized children.
It sounds like beautiful work, really, Pooja.
It is. It is.
You must have, many stories, heartwarming stories, or moments where you thought, "Oh, this is so worth it." Can you give us an example of one?
I have, many. There's some stories that stand out. I mean, I think every child is precious and amazing, right? I recently met this young girl who is from a village in Bihar. Bihar is, to give you context, one of our most poor states, as in the human development indicators for children are very poor in that state. And there is a lot of gender related violence. There is gender related deprivation of opportunities, of education. There is early child marriage. Everything that can be wrong for children sort of happens there because of the slightly larger levels of poverty.
Yeah.
And so she comes, here is this young girl, and she's sitting. So we were celebrating our 40th anniversary, and we invited her to come and talk to us. And she's sitting there on a stage confidently and telling us about how, her parents wanted to marry her off and get her to drop out from school. And how she, because of the work we were doing with her in groups, where we work in these adolescent groups, and understood that this is wrong for her, that if she gets married, her education will stop. She will not be productive. She will, she may end up having children, and so on. The cycle of poverty will not be broken. So she convinced her parents not to marry her. She then has gone on. So here is this young thing who has not just stayed back in school, but is now, and I don't know if you can even imagine a village where a girl does not even have a voice. She's not considered worthy of anything but, doing housework. And is now with her little group of girls running around, urging and stopping child marriages all over her district.
How old is she?
And she is 17.
Wow.
And you see these young people just taking charge of their lives and very confidently telling you, there was another girl who told us about how she wanted to play football. And again, in her village, girls are not allowed to play, forget football.
Yeah.
Not only did she create her own football team, she fought with the principal, ensured that the football ground that was only supposed to be used by boys was used by girls. And is now, their team is like sort of going to the district and winning medals. And it's incredible.
That is incredible. That is incredible.
So to me, and I know that this has happened not because you have simply worked with the child, but that we have worked with the community. We have worked with ensuring that the government school is working, that the community has healthcare access, that the parents are feeling strong enough to be able to go and demand accountability from the school to ensure that there is teaching, for example. Or that they are being challenged to change their very look at this case, right? This is my view of life. If I don't get her married off when she's 14, she'll never get married. Nobody will marry her. What will happen? Because there is no imagination where the girl can stand her on her own feet.
And yet you see
it always has to be someone's property.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine, of course, for many people, I'm sure, listening, but that is the case in some, in some people's lives, and that's
Yes,
why your
yes,
organizations exist, right? So that you
absolutely.
can do something
Yeah.
about it. That's wonderful. I'm sure you have many of the more of those stories. But
I
Pooja,
do.
absolutely. What would a potential donation from Happy Nation NFT, how would it help child rights in you?
Oh, it would really help us. We are currently facing quite a crisis after 2 years of school closures due to COVID,
Yeah.
which in our case means children who've not had access to online education. Only 20% have access to smartphones. And therefore, the education's been
Oh, wow.
pushed back.
Mm-hmm.
And, we are now doing bridge courses. We've been trying to, do other things with the children to keep them engaged and to keep in contact, to ensure they're not being trafficked or they're not getting into labor.
Yeah.
This work right now needs extra money. It
Mm-hmm.
needs us to reach children through teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And the teachers are reporting that many of the children their learning levels have got pushed back for levels.
Yeah.
So there is a need to push back.
Mm-hmm.
The immunization was actually shut down for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Schools are being reopened, and as they are being reopened, we are having to rescue children from child labor and marriages,
Mm-hmm.
and bring them back to school.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the need right now is really, there's a spike in what we need to do for children. I always think children have been the invisible victims of COVID
Mm-hmm.
because, they were not so susceptible to the disease,
Yeah.
but to the isolation and what has happened to them
Yeah.
through this process is what we would use your money for.
Yeah. Pooja, it is so lovely to hear your stories and to hear from you. It's wonderful work that you're doing. And as I like to say, we are rooting for you, and we're just very proud to be partnered up with Child Rights in
Thank you
You.
so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
the
much,
interview.
Amelia. It's our honor
Yeah.
and pleasure.
And
Thank you.
absolutely. So everybody, please look below where you will find links to Child Rights in You social media channels, where you can find out more about them. Pooja, what would be the best place to find out about the organization? Everywhere, right?
Our website,
Mhm.
social media,
Mhm.
our Twitter, our
Facebook. I saw a lot's
Instagram,
going on Facebook as well. Yeah,
Facebook.
exactly.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All
Thank
right.
you.